fulfill any of the emotions I was feeling, able to do that through many different genres, which is very like satisfying as a musician. So
well, I appreciate you being here. This podcast is about you and your journey in music, and obviously we'll talk about the new EP that you guys just put out as well.
Cool, man. Is my audio okay? Man, I have my like good condenser mic, but it was being a little finicky when I was testing it last night, so I didn't want to risk it. So is this cool?
No, that sounds great how you have it now. Yeah, it's all good.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I think we got a couple faulty XLR cables in my household here that I gotta fix. So
all good. Yeah, it's not a problem at all.
Cool.
So first off, talk to me about where were you born and raised?
I was born in Calgary, Alberta.
Wow.
Raised in Calgary, Alberta. Still here.
I was gonna ask, are you still there?
I am. Yeah.
Wow, amazing.
Yes, I love Calgary. I really do. I think this is a great city. I think it's like maybe somewhat of a hidden gem within Canada. I think when you think Canada, you kind of think Vancouver, Toronto immediately.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Calgary's an awesome place. So
how far away is Calgary from like Toronto?
40-hour drive probably.
Is it really? Like
it's across the country.
Well, okay, so where am I thinking of then?
So I'm on the western side of Canada. So
I'm
close.
You are.
I'm
That's
close
where I was
to
confused.
Vancouver.
You're closer to Vancouver then. That's where I was confused.
Yeah, we're on the Pacific side.
Okay, I was thinking that you were on the, the eastern side. That's why I asked that.
Oh,
okay,
dude,
so well
it's
then,
all good.
Yeah, I get so confused with geography. I'm terrible at it.
Me too.
Okay, so then you're close to Vancouver then. So how far would it be from there?
We're about like a 9-hour drive from Vancouver.
Okay, so still not that close.
Not like incredibly close. The cool thing about driving to Vancouver, especially as a band, is there's a place to stop in between called Kelowna. And you can have an awesome show there, but it's like a beach town, kind of like small little city, but it's in the it's basically surrounded by lakes. So in the summer, like when we play Vancouver, we'll do a quick pit stop, play Kelowna, hopefully have a day off there to hang at the lake and stuff like that, and then make our way to Vancouver. But yeah, like everything in Canada is pretty spread out. It's not like touring the US or something where we can hit a different city every couple hours, which would be amazing. But yeah.
That's what I've noticed, that if you're a band touring Canada, especially if you know you're from Canada and like you mainly would just stay within your country, like it's a nightmare, right? To like, I mean, as far as like getting around, you could drive a day, or I mean 40 hours. That's that would take you what, like a week to do?
Yeah, at least like a few days of just nonstop driving. And you better have multiple drivers because, like if you're taking the nights off and stuff, it's going to take you about a week, probably more. A lot of bands will play Vancouver, come to Calgary, play Edmonton, which is about 2.5 hours north of us.
Okay.
And then they'll dip into Montana and start playing the States until they get to the East Coast, and then they'll go up to Toronto.
Oh, okay.
That's the smart thing to do, is like if you are gonna tackle Canada on a tour, you're doing the US in between the coasts.
Okay.
And that just means, you're playing a show every night. You're not driving a week from Calgary to Toronto. And that's probably why some bands don't play Canada as well, because of the logistics of setting up a tour like that and having to cross the border multiple times on one tour. Like it can be wild. So
yeah, I was gonna say that's got to be insane, and especially with the past 2 years of everything that was happening, with all the restrictions and coming in and out of countries, like that made it even more of a nightmare, I'm sure.
Oh, absolutely. We were supposed to go on a tour right before the pandemic hit. We got approved for our work visas for the States, which is great. That's a feat in itself. But it is possible for even small bands like we are, to get a visa and do this properly. But immediately after that, all of the borders implemented different rules, new rules. They're still fluctuating and changing all the time. So I think it's getting better now. Like I think now I'm seeing more tours and bands from the States coming up into Canada now. So I
Hmm.
do think there is, you know, if you are up here working, like they're gonna let you come work. Um so yeah, let's cross our fingers for 2022 that all these tours that are scheduled, you know,
Actually happen.
follow through and happen, because it's
Yeah.
so exciting to see on social media and everything, like what's
Mhm.
going on. I'm like, yes, things are happening, but you
Right.
know, we can't get our hopes up too quickly.
For sure. Well, growing up in Calgary was what was that like? I mean, are you on the coast there on the West Coast or no?
No, we're not like directly on the coast, but we are like the next major city over from Vancouver, which is
Right.
on the coast.
Hmm.
But yeah, we're kind of landlocked. I'm actually like from the Rocky Mountains. Like Calgary is at the foothills of the Rocky Mountains.
Oh, amazing.
So like our bread and butter is like snowboarding, skiing.
Okay.
You know, lots of people come to Calgary to go to, there's a place called Banff, which is about an hour away from me. And it's just like kind of like a famous little mountain town that almost looks like it's from a movie or something.
Really?
So yeah, we have like, and lots of little like Rocky Mountain lakes and stuff around. So even though we're not on a coast, we still have like lots of awesome stuff around Calgary.
Sure.
Yeah.
No,
So
I was just
yeah,
curious.
it's a cool
Like,
place.
yeah, I'm just so again, I feel dumb like not knowing any of this stuff, but I'm like, yeah. Um, so were you outdoors a lot? Like, did you spend a majority of your childhood out, like outside, like snowboarding, skiing, all that?
Yeah, man. And I think because Calgary in the winter, it can get pretty cold. We were pretty lucky this winter. It didn't really get too cold. We were, you know, it was kind of like hoodie weather almost all winter here in Calgary, which is pretty unbelievable. But yeah, because it would get so cold in the winters, normally before global warming really started catching up to us. We basically in the winter, you sit inside, play guitar, write music, and go snowboarding. You know, we're always going to the mountains and stuff. And
Mhm.
then in the summer, you're outside, you know, hiking, doing things in the mountains, really taking advantage of the summer weather because Calgary in the summer gets quite hot. So
Mhm.
you see it, you know, as soon as the weather starts changing from winter, people are like walking around our city in flip flops and stuff. Like, you know, people are just like, yes, it's almost here. So
Right.
but yeah, I was an outdoorsy kid for sure.
That's cool.
I still try, man. Like we definitely take the mountains for granted. Ask pretty much anyone that grew up here, they'll tell you they
Mhm.
take the setting for granted. Because a lot of my friends that are not from Calgary but live here, they're like, man, like they're in the mountains, you know, every weekend type thing.
Right.
So yeah, but as I've grown up and gotten older, I'm realizing what I have here and the beauty of the land here and stuff. And you know, you really got to take advantage. It's inspiring, even when it comes to songwriting.
Mhm.
Like a day in the mountains, man, hiking. Um, you come back and you're like, whoa, I feel good. Like I got a rush of energy. I'm feeling
Mhm.
creative. Like, let's go. So
That's amazing. And how did you get into music? Your musical household at all or no?
yeah, my dad's a drummer.
Oh, amazing.
So yeah,
Professionally
so
or just it's just a
he
gig he
was
had?
for a long time. And he also owns a business, like a woodworking business too. So
Okay.
he kind of was doing both usually through his whole life. And he still plays the drums and still has like a jam band, and they'll play at, there's this spot called the Blues Can in our city,
Mhm.
and like they'll go play there and stuff all the time. Like he's, you know, living his best dad old man life. No offense,
Sure.
dad, love you. But yeah, so I grew up in definitely a musical household. You know, my mom, I was listening to Whitney Houston through my mom, and Janet Jackson and Michael Jackson, and lots of like really amazing music growing up. And then through my dad, I was listening to, you know, Black Sabbath, Pink Floyd, even like Metallica and stuff through my dad. So I had a drum set by the time I was 5 years old. So I
Really?
truly started on drums, which is funny because in every band I've ever really been in, I've played guitar. But yeah, I started on drums and probably picked up the guitar around like 11,
Okay.
12. And that's when I started getting more into like plugging into an amp, and like electric guitar kind of blew my mind after so many years of playing drums. I was like, man, I could turn this down and like put it in my headphones, and you know, it could be midnight and I can be in my room just writing stuff or playing
Mhm.
along to my favorite bands or whatever. So yeah, I really started getting attached to the guitar. But every now and then I'll still play Tommy Trench's drummer. I'll still play his kit just for fun, you know, make sure I still have my rhythm and everything a little bit anyway.
That's cool. That's amazing that you weren't a drummer for other bands because drummers are so hard to find, like a dime a dozen, right? I
Yeah.
mean, like, you know, it's like, at least where I was, I mean, growing up, when I tried to play in bands, you know, played guitar terribly. If you ever wanted to jam, it was like the drummer always had like the pick of the litter. It was like, who did they want to play with? You know, it was like,
Yeah.
and you know, like if you're a drummer, you could choose anyone, and then if you're a guitar player, you just hope the drummer wanted to play with you.
Yeah. It's so true. You nailed that. And it's funny because if you're like a good drummer, you can go far, you know, like
Mhm.
you can go far if you're a good drummer and have the ambition and motivation. Like you said, there's way less drummers than there are guitarists. So
Mhm.
but yeah, I don't know what it was with me wanting to gravitate towards the guitar. I think when I was like 14-ish, I started my first band, and it was all because my one of my best buddies who was a drummer, um he was like, man, why don't you play in like a metal band or a hardcore band on guitar? Because I was just like riffing around while he was at my house. He's like, I'll
Mhm.
drum. So I think it was like literally that moment that I was kind of gravitating towards guitar, because I found a drummer, you
Right,
know,
you
who
had a
who
drummer.
was down and wanted to play and like write music and stuff. So I was like, awesome, dude, I'll play guitar. And I guess the rest is history, you know. It surprises me too that I took guitar as far as I have when starting as a drummer. I really feel a lot of drummers, you know, they're tenured, and
Mhm.
once you start playing drums, you oftentimes stick with that instrument
Mhm.
as your main gig. So yeah, a little backwards for me, but I think it worked out for the best, you
For
know. I
sure.
I look at drummers now, even Tom from Trench, and I'm just like, man, I can't do that shit. Like there's no way. So yeah, so really like I'm better off where I am on guitar for sure.
For sure. My son is about to turn 6 next month, but we gave him we got him a drum kit when COVID started, but we got him the electric kit. So yeah, so the neighbors
Nice.
didn't want to like, you know, kill us.
Yeah.
But yeah, a buddy of mine's a drummer and for a bunch of different artists. So I called him. I'm like, dude, like what? He's 5. What do I get? And he's like, sends me this kit. I'm like, is this a little advanced? He's like, no, teach him how to play like with a real kick drum and everything because
Totally.
it'll make a difference. And he's taking lessons now and he likes it, but I feel like he's more interested in the piano, which I think is still
Oh,
cool.
okay.
But
Yeah, that's awesome.
I want him to stay on the drums. Like I'm like, yeah, that, like I'll definitely give you piano lessons, but you're gonna stay in drum
Yes,
lessons because if
absolutely.
he ever wants to be in a band, then he won't have to go find the drummer, hopefully.
Exactly. That's awesome. Like for sure. Like that I'm of the mindset, you know, kids should be musical if they like it and you could tell
Mhm.
they have an interest in it. Like that's awesome. Piano lessons, drums, like the whole nine. I remember when I was a kid, my mom put me in piano lessons. Like I didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And that helped immensely with just learning how to read music and you know, scales and just the fundamentals of music.
Mhm.
Piano was an absolute lifesaver for that, and kind of set the tone for, you know, how I go about writing. And I'm definitely a big player by ear.
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to someone who like goes out and looks at tabs or tries to read music.
Mm-hmm.
And I think piano was the reason that I function that way for sure.
That's amazing. That's interesting. And so you were playing piano and drums at the same time for a while?
And guitar. Yeah.
Oh, and guitar, all of it together.
Yeah. I
Wow.
think I took piano lessons for like at least probably 4-ish years,
Oh,
enough to like
cool.
to grasp piano a little bit. I think I've lost it a little bit though, because I actually sat on a piano the other day at National Music Center here in Calgary. I was on like a tour there, there was a tour guide taking us around the museum.
That's
She was like, "You
cool.
could play this piano if you want," and I sat down and I was like, "Oh man, I have no idea how to do this anymore." You know what I mean?
Really?
So I think I kind of lost it. I might have to watch some YouTube and brush myself back up on the piano.
Yeah, I'm sure you could figure it out again.
Yeah, right.
Well, that's cool. Well, I would just have a quick question on your dad because you said he was a drummer. And did you ever go see him play at all, or was he done playing in bands at that point?
Yeah, totally. I used to go see him play. Um, Usually it was at venues that I was too young to be at, right? Like he was
Sure,
playing
like a
at
bar or
clubs or
something.
bars or something
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, my mom would sneak me in and stuff, and just throw the big headphones on me so I wasn't damaging my ears. And
Oh
yeah, I
yeah.
would go see my dad play. And I used to love watching his band practice at their practice space. I would literally just sit there with my own drumsticks and like a drum pad and just kind of drum along to what they were playing. But if it wasn't for my dad, there's absolutely no way I'd be in music right now. That was super pivotal. And, him being such a music guy, of course, that rubs off on me. Kind of like
Mhm.
with your son, if he's
He's
6
interested.
and
Yeah.
he's drumming, that was exactly kind of the age range where I started at. So it'll
That's
most
cool.
likely be with him forever in some capacity. And I know for me it was because of my dad. So
That's amazing because that's something like I want for him, but I'm like, am I going to be that parent that's just like throwing stuff at him, and then he's like, I don't want to do this. I'm like, you're gonna do it,
right,
and then
yeah,
he's just
yeah.
gonna resent me and hate music because I'm throwing it at him. But yeah, he seems
Hopefully not.
interested
Music's
enough.
cool, right? So it's
Yeah,
like
right.
most kids are like, "Oh man, like who doesn't love making a bunch of noise?" And like especially with drums, just getting to, just
Good
beat the
point.
drum skins, like that's
Yeah.
so satisfying for a kid. So yeah,
Yeah,
we'll
his
see. You
friends
got
will
to
come
keep me
over and
posted.
smash. Yeah, definitely. I definitely will. His friends will come over and just like want to just hit the drums all day, like smash it.
Oh
Actually, run
yeah.
it through that same orange amp that you have behind you. Because
Yeah,
I have an older
awesome.
son and he plays guitar. He's learning guitar. So we bought him that amp, and because the kit's electric, and when the teacher comes over, we plug it into that orange amp, and it sounds pretty good, like coming out
Oh,
through
of
there. But I need
course.
to get him a new speaker, I think. But
Cool. Yeah, yeah.
it ends up sounding pretty good, just even coming through the guitar amp.
And with the electric drums, I mean, you could patch any sound onto there too. So even more options and fun.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a little electric drum kit in the basement of my house.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, my dad gave it to me like maybe 2 or 3 months ago.
Oh,
And man,
amazing.
they're so fun. They're so sick. Like I you know, I like it. The volume knob is really awesome. Like the
It
fact that
really
you can
is.
go down there at 10:30 and like jam out a whole record if you want, and no
Uh-huh.
one even knows you're doing it.
Right. Yeah. I
Beautiful.
mean, it's not very loud at all. And when you're hitting them, and it's the loudest thing for us is we have a two-story, and so the drum kit's on the top floor. So like when he's hitting the kick, it's like do do. Like
Right,
you can hear
yeah.
it downstairs, but I don't care. I'm like, play it
No,
as long as you want, as loud as you want. I don't care, as long
that's
as you're
awesome,
playing it.
man.
But yeah, that's awesome that you started on off on drums. And so
Yeah.
you said you started playing in a band. What if when your friend that was a drummer said, let's start something, and then how long were you in that band for? Was it just something that you guys screwed around with? And then what was the first kind of step in the I want to do music full time direction?
Yeah, I was about 14 and we started a band called Act Fast. Kind of like a hardcore band, like
That's a
a
cool name.
yeah, a kind of punky hardcore band.
Yeah.
There's a band. So I started going to shows when I was really young, like probably a year before that, or maybe 2 years before that. just going to local shows. You know, there was lots of all ages shows here, and you know, a lot of friends in my junior high were already into music and going to the local shows and the local scene before I was. So I kind of got introduced to that through like grade 7 junior high
Mm-hmm.
school type
Mm-hmm.
thing. So once I started listening to that stuff, the heavier music and hardcore punk rock, I was like, man, yeah, like my buddy's right. We should start a band. Like I'd love to write stuff like this, and just, you know, was always creative, always wanted to play shows and to make music and make records at the time, make, you know, CDs and burn my own music to my own CDs and stuff. Like I was all about all of that. So Act Fast actually got like somewhat popular within Canada. We were lucky, man. We got to play some amazing shows. We got to open for some awesome bands at that time. Like just being such a young kid, being exposed to like the industry
Mm-hmm.
and playing like some of the bigger venues in the city and stuff was really, really wild. Like I remember my English teacher, once I got to like grade 9, 10, I remember my English teacher like letting me leave early because I would have to like drive to Edmonton or Vancouver to like play with Act Fast, you know. So being a high
Wow. So you
school
guys were
kid and
like
like
doing stuff like
we were like
and that young. I mean,
on a
that early
small
on in high
scale,
school. Yeah. Wow.
for sure. Like for being that young, I thought I was like, whoa, this is insane. Like, wow, this is so cool. And even just playing like Edmonton was just a trip for us, you know.
Sure.
Luckily, one of the guys in my band, like he was just old enough to have his license, so we were able to like drive to the shows and make this happen for ourselves. I can't tell you how many venues like we couldn't tell we were like under 18 to. You
Oh,
know,
right,
we
right,
kind of
right.
had to like play the show and just like leave and hang outside after, just because we were not all of us were like of age and
Of
stuff
age.
yet.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was my first band.
What were some of you said you got to play with some big acts. Like, is there somebody off the top of your head you can remember playing with and being like, oh my gosh, I can't believe we're opening up for so and so?
Totally. There was a band that I was super influenced by writing Act Fast, and they were called Ceremony. Have you ever heard of that band, Ceremony?
The name
They're
sounds familiar.
they're
I,
still around. They've changed themselves sonically quite a bit
okay.
since then, but they used to just be like a really heavy, kind of thrashy hardcore band.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they were really like spearheading a genre within heavy music, I think, that not a lot of bands were messing with at the time. Super heavy. Now they're kind of like almost like an indie rock band. Like they've changed their sound so much.
Oh,
They're still
interesting.
amazing, but check them
Mhm.
out after this
Yeah, I will.
podcast. But Ceremony, that was a band that I was super influenced by. My band Act Fast used to like cover one of their songs and stuff at our gigs, and I remember we got to open for them. So, you know, we were kind of almost like starstruck, even though we were playing like a community center opening for this band that we all love to listen to. It was like a dream come true at the time, you
That's
know. So,
cool.
and I still
That's
remember that show vividly. And um yeah, I still listen to that band too. I don't know if they're as much of an influence for my writing as they used to be, but I still really, just that show resonates with me, and that band, I think because of that I have such a soft spot for that band.
that's incredible. They're from California. I just looked them up.
Yeah, they're from California. Yeah,
Oh,
they're
cool.
they're awesome. I don't know like how often they still play, but I ended up seeing them many times after that. I traveled to LA for a fest called Sound and Fury
Hmm.
back in the day. Have you heard of that
Yeah,
fest?
I have. I'm from San Diego, so I know a
Oh,
little
okay.
bit. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
about.
Okay. So and saw Ceremony there, and it was just epic, man. They headlined that festival, and it was just like absolutely epic. And that was probably 5 years after the show we played with them. So
Wow,
yeah, fantastic band, man. So that's a standout show for me, for being such a young kid,
that's cool.
being able to do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna check them out after this. They're from the like around the Bay Area, San Francisco
Yeah,
area.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. So that, I mean, with Act Fast, how long did that band stay around for? And like, you know, what like as it fizzles out, like tell me what was next for you.
So through playing in Act Fast, I met a few guys from the city over, like I was telling you before,
Mm-hmm.
Kelowna, British Columbia, and Act Fast and their band Born for Battle, we would play together. I ended up starting a band with those guys, and we were called Horizons, and we like I think I was 18 at the time, roughly. I had probably just graduated high school, and the first thing we did was book ourselves like a 2-month US Canada tour
Oh
through
wow.
Horizons. So we actually we became busy enough, and we were touring enough that Act Fast was just not something I could realistically put my time into anymore. So
Wasn't acting
and
fast enough.
yeah, wasn't acting fast enough. Yeah, I see what you did there.
You like that
um
one?
but yeah, and it kind of slowly fizzled out, and some of the members moved away to Vancouver or surrounding cities and stuff, so it kind of just like naturally fizzled out.
Mm-hmm.
Act Fast ended up playing a last show at a really awesome venue here. We're like right downtown Calgary, and it was an amazing show. I think there was like 600 or 700 people there.
Wow.
It was an awesome like send off for Act Fast, but
Mm-hmm.
my eyes were on my new band Horizons. We were getting some cool opportunities, and we were playing some awesome shows around the states. And being a Canadian boy and being able to play New York City or LA or something like that was really fun. And I was at the age where I could actually kind of, not really worry about anything else in my life, as
Mm-hmm.
as bad as that sounds, and just kind of worry about touring and like, working in between tours to go on tour, because you're obviously not making money on those tours by any means, but just for the opportunity to be able to do that. And it's funny because through Horizons, we started playing shows with a band called Gravemaker.
Mm-hmm.
They're from Vancouver, a couple of guys from Seattle as well. And yeah, I saw them at a show in Calgary, and one of their guys came up to me and they were like, "Man, we're looking for a new guitar player." Like, let us know. They were already well established and already touring. They were touring South America and Europe, and like
Wow.
doing things that I could only have imagined to do at that time. So
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I ended up doing that with Gravemaker. It didn't last too long. I think I was in the band for maybe like a year and a half or so.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, that was an awesome opportunity for me. Those guys taught me so much about touring, and about just writing music and releasing music, and um, you know, talking to labels, and just all the kind of behind the scene stuff
Mm-hmm.
that you don't really get to see. So yeah, that was a really great opportunity for me, and being able to play with some of the bands I played with Gravemaker and stuff was very inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely changed my life. Um I could probably say that was the turning point for me, to where I knew I wanted music to be like a full-time thing for me, was
Okay.
when I was with Gravemaker. So yeah, it went Act Fast, Horizons, Gravemaker, and then I kind of ventured out to other things as well. So
Okay. Well, with Graymaker, did the band end up stopping, or was that hard to like, make you that decision? Like, okay, now this is what I really want to do. I'm really going to pursue doing music. And you said the band you played with the band for about a year and a half, and then after that, what like how do you like what where did you go from there? And like, did the band stop, or like where did that leave with you?
yeah, they were so Gravemaker was awesome, because I was also like doing production at the time, and getting kind of dipping my toes into doing music production. So
Oh, okay.
making beats and
Mm-hmm.
doing engineering, and just general music nerdism in Logic and Pro Tools, and I
Right.
got really into like samplers and drum synthesizers and stuff like that. So I was actively like in the Gravemaker van when we were on tour, like doing production on my laptop in the back seat, like
Oh,
making beats
wow.
for different artists and different rappers and stuff like that. I think it was a combination of things that made me leave Gravemaker. One was the touring schedule.
Hmm.
I think I was too young at the time. I think that I was overwhelmed by how much we were on tour, to put it
Yeah.
bluntly. You know,
I
like
mean, that could
I
be,
just don't.
that was probably overwhelming, right?
Yeah, it was crazy, and like to sustain myself in between tours, and like, you know, I had a pretty solid job here, but it got pretty tricky sometimes. And then, you know, so that was one aspect of it that I just don't think I was ready yet. Like I have been for the last couple of years, once I really matured and understood how touring worked and stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it was a combination of me really wanting to pursue uh, production stuff as well. I really had a great time making beats for rappers and stuff like that, and I was getting really into it and
Hmm.
getting like somewhat busy. So I met a rapper from Detroit when I was on tour with Gravemaker and Terror, actually.
Wow.
And we kind of hit it off, and we started a little project called Suicide Kings. I
Hmm.
made the beats and he rapped, and I think that was the real catalyst for me leaving Gravemaker, was starting to take Suicide Kings seriously. I was noticing the trajectory of our music, and you know, we were getting cool show offers and stuff like that. And I think hip hop was really where I wanted to lay my feet. As
Hmm.
you can tell, I've expanded since then. I still do Suicide Kings and make lots of hip hop music. You know, I would say I moonlight as trench guitarist and songwriter, you know,
Okay.
but a lot of my time goes into making production for artists.
That's
Um,
cool.
yeah. So, and then Suicide Kings, I mean, long story short, man, we released a bunch of vinyl on a couple different labels in Paris and in the States. And we toured Europe 3 times. Um, I made some lifelong connections, and kind of uh, crafted myself a little bit of a career out of being able to do the production side of things.
Yeah, that's
Um,
incredible to like go from, being in these kind of heavier thrash bands, and then you're like, I'm going to start making like beats, like hip hop beats, and then have it become something. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
that's quite incredible. And was that
thank
something
you.
that was hard to, I mean, when you leave the band, then it's like you're getting all these opportunities with Suicide Kings, and then when do you come back around, and is Trench like the next band that you form?
Yeah, and Trench was years later.
Oh, it was
Um,
years later. Okay.
yeah, so I was quite busy with Suicide Kings for, I would say, like a good 5 years or so.
Wow. Okay,
Um,
so that became like the full-time thing.
that became my full-time thing. Yeah, for sure. Like that really truly was like my full attention almost, because we were just busy, you know.
Mhm.
And the MC from Suicide Kings, he was actually living in Calgary at the time, and he ended up moving back to Detroit. And obviously, like it can become harder to write music as often and as efficiently as we were before in the same room together. Now we're like, he's in
Right.
a different country.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I was still busy with Suicide Kings, but I was looking to sink my teeth into something else
Mhm.
as well, like something tangible that I can do in the city. I really love writing with people. You know, I love writing with people in the same room.
Mhm.
I think because it was about probably 5, 6, maybe even more years displaced from the Gravemaker times, I was ready to play heavy music again. I had never put my guitar down or anything, but I was ready to, you know, still fulfill my role as a producer and work with Suicide Kings and work with different artists and make beats. But I wanted to dive into some more uh, heavy music writing as well. and that was when kind of Trench came along. And yeah, it came along at the perfect time, man, because I realized I have really bad anxiety,
Mm-hmm.
and writing music or playing instruments is one of like the only things that truly kind of zens me out.
Mm-hmm.
So to be able to write heavy aggressive music or write like a soulful rap song, I was able to fulfill any of the emotions I was feeling,
Mm-hmm.
um, and able to do that through many different genres, which is very like satisfying
Mm-hmm.
as a musician. So yeah, that's kind of the story of like it now that I'm talking about it, it's like, wow, it went from this band to this band. Like there was a lot of moving parts to get
Mm-hmm.
to where I am now.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And with Trench, do you find the guys in the band, like, are they people you knew prior? Like, how does the band begin then?
Yeah, so with Trench, these are all guys I grew up with in Calgary,
Oh,
essentially.
okay.
Yeah, we all met like through going to shows um a decade plus ago, probably. Like there's photos of Act Fast last show, and like the Trench guys are like in the crowd shots moshing and stuff, you know, from
Wow,
when we're
that's
like
cool.
super young. So yeah, we've known each other for a long time. So Trench actually, they formed, it was originally just Jay and Bryce, and then they included, got the Chans involved. So Tony and Tommy Chan, the rhythm
Hmm.
section of
Yeah, the
Trench.
drum and bass, right?
Exactly, yeah. And they
Which they
kind
must
of,
be super tight if they're brothers, I would imagine.
they're twins.
Twins, there you go. Like, yeah. There
Dude,
was a
they have
band.
that twin connection. You
Oh,
can
and
see
especially
it.
with drums and bass together, like that's got to be unreal.
Dude, it's like so awesome to experience them having that twin rhythm section connection,
Yeah.
because like I was listening to a podcast that Tommy did the other day, and he was like, man, when me and Tony mess up, like we mess up at the same time and we recover at the same time. Like they're totally on that wavelength, you know?
That's so
So
funny. That's
yeah,
insane.
it's pretty awesome. Um, but yeah, so Bryce, Jay, Tony, and Tommy, they actually wrote Trench songs before I was even in the band. They
Oh,
were
wow.
originally just going to be a band with one single guitar player. They had maybe played like a show prior, and then I went to see them at this really interesting kind of warehouse venue in Calgary. It was maybe like their second or third show. I don't quite remember. And I was pretty intrigued by the music. You know, there was like
Mhm.
20 people there, like super small show, but it was, the vibe was just like unbelievable, you know. And I was really stoked on Trench, and we were all homies anyway. And yeah, we kind of just got to talking, and it I don't remember if they said it or if I said it, but like I think like a few days later I was in Trench as their second guitar player, and I was like, all right, boys, like let's get to it. Teach me the songs you've written. Let's write
Mhm.
more shit. Like let's dig into this. And I think with my knowledge of the industry, I
Mhm.
could help kind of, I don't know, take Trench to where they wanted to be, maybe like in a like releasing music type of standpoint. Like, are we gonna press tapes? Are we gonna have shirts? Like that kind of stuff, you know? So
Mhm.
I think that yeah, the powers combined, man, like with all of us combined, just kind of made Trench what it was. And but yeah, it's interesting. I definitely joined the band um after they had played their first show, which was sweet for me because I got to actually watch. Because I've now, you know, I've been in Trench for X amount of years, 5 or 6 years,
Mhm.
um, and it was kind of cool to be able to watch one of their first shows as a spectator.
Right, right.
It's weird to think about, you know.
And did they have any music out yet, or is it just they just played? They had songs and they just played a couple shows and that was
I
it.
think they had like a little demo out,
Okay.
like a 2 or 3 song demo. Um, you know, didn't get fancy with the recordings or anything like that. And that was what they had out at the time of me seeing them. So
Mhm.
what I loved about Trench too, and again, this was like 5, 6 years ago, was they had already put something on Bandcamp and they had only played a show or two. You know, I find that a lot of bands wait until they play 20 shows and then they're like, okay, here's our music that you can listen to digitally, you know. And I
Mhm.
love that Trench was really about crafting the product, which is what I'm super into. Like, we're totally a studio band. You know, we love writing music and like, and being in the studio and recording and crafting like an LP or an EP. Like, that's, we love doing that. But
Mhm.
um the next release Condition was the one that I was like, all right, boys, like we need to like press tapes or something. um you know, we need to kind of take this to the next level. And then for our first like true EP, The Gift of Guilt, was when I think we were like, okay, we're gonna go to like a really legit engineer and producer and like, let's try and make this sound sonically awesome if we're gonna take this band seriously. So
Mhm.
and we've been going to that guy ever since. And I think The Gift of Guilt was like a turning point for the sound of Trench. I think
Mhm.
that was when a lot of people listened to us and kind of were like, okay, like this production's awesome. Like, I'm not going to sleep on this, you know? Uh,
Right, right.
so yeah,
And because you put that record out in 20, what, 19? That
yes,
EP, and then you did a record Blossom. That was what, 2 years ago, I guess.
2020.
Now, yeah,
Yeah,
it's weird to think that that was 2 years ago.
it is. It's
So
super weird.
did
Yeah.
that
Whoa.
record come out during pandemic or before it started?
During, it was a tough
Oh,
decision what we were going to do with the release of that record.
was it done
It came out
beforehand?
April 2020, so like a
Oh,
month
wow.
after the pandemic started. Yeah, it
Okay.
was done beforehand. So we were basically, what our 2020 was looking like is we recorded Blossom in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
We were set to release Blossom in April of 2020, and we were supposed to go on tour with Misery Signals in the US and Canada in July.
Oh, wow.
So we were basically gonna release the record, play a couple like spot dates, and then we were leaving for like a month-long Misery Signals tour.
Okay.
And
Th-
the
Obviously
only
that
thing
didn't
that
happen.
happened out of all of that is that we released Blossom,
Okay.
which is cool. Like, it definitely did great things for us. And you know, we debated. We were like, should we hold off? How long is this going to be? Is this going to be a week? Is this going to be years? And here we are 2 years later. But you know, that was something we were just like, you know, let's just do it.
Hmm.
Let's just release this record. And you know, if it falls by the wayside or something, we're not breaking up. We have more records in us. Like, let's just release it and see what happens. And I'm so glad we did. You know, I believe it carried Trench. It helped us get through the pandemic and still be a band that can release something today that people may care about. You know,
Hmm.
we didn't get lost in the pandemic shuffle or break up like a lot of bands did, which I understand why bands were doing that. We were just lucky because we all live in the same city. You know,
Hmm.
through the pandemic, we could get together and write and still go to the studio and be creative. It was a pretty amazing thing in such like a dire situation that we could still be a band together.
Hmm. And
Yeah.
were those songs that you were able to work on and write throughout the pandemic? Is that what became Encased in Chrome, or are these even newer songs than that?
Yep. We wrote Encased in Chrome through the pandemic.
Okay.
We kind of like, yeah, we were in our city, the COVID numbers were up and down and up and down. So we were constantly like shutting down and reopening and shutting down and reopening. So the record started with us just sending like stems to each other through
Hmm.
email, basically, and kind of building off of that. Our drummer Tommy and Tony, his brother, they're both like great engineers, and Tom has an awesome little studio set up in his basement.
Hmm.
So we were able to, you know, once we were feeling comfortable about getting in the same room and all that, we were able to take all these ideas we had already kind of hashed out through sending stems to each other, and we just started recording pre-production in Tom's basement, you know, in
Wow.
his home studio. So that was like I think we will never not do pre-production ever again, because we were able to take like months of recording, changing this, changing that, changing the structure, re-recording it, and not having to pay for all this studio time
Right.
of us like basically crafting a record in a studio, but it's Tom's studio, and
Mhm.
he's in the band, so he's like, let's do it here, I'll
Right,
record
right.
our ideas and let's start building these songs and writing these songs. So actually, Encased in Chrome was super fun to write. I really want to continue writing trench stuff like that.
Mhm.
It's awesome to be able to listen to a song knowing you're not putting it out for like 8 to 10 months. So, oh, you don't like that riff there? Let's go back and rework that and change
Right, we
it
can
because
change
we
it.
have the time to do that,
Mhm.
So I think that was like a nice secret weapon for us to be able to get as wild as we did on Encased in Chrome. And that's kind of how we're starting to write our LP right now, as well as like we got stems floating around right now, like mostly guitar riffs. And I think once we hash a few of them out, we'll start going to the pre-pro process already, just because that's become a part of our writing process.
Mhm. That's amazing. And with,
Yeah,
with that record or with the new one, Encased in Chrome, you guys signed with Dynalone?
yeah.
What was that like? I mean, they're a great
Surreal.
label. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really surreal, man. So yeah, like through the pandemic, it allowed us to focus a little bit more on like the business side of Trench, and what does this look like? Do we want to keep doing this in the DIY realm, which honestly none of us have a problem with doing that. We all grew up doing it through our hardcore bands and just basically doing everything ourselves. Now the only difference is like we're a little older, we all have jobs, so like we can afford to do a merch run, or we can afford to, you know, book the studio time or something. But signing to Dynalone slash New Damage was New Damage is basically Dynalone Records, like alternative kind of heavy
Mhm.
label, subsidiary.
Right.
And signing to Dynalone was just it couldn't have happened at a better time. First of all, we couldn't believe we got a record deal through COVID.
Right. I know.
Um,
That's incredible.
yeah, it was really odd in a time of kind of despair for the music industry. I was under the impression like labels just weren't signing or anything, because it was so uncertain with live shows and just being able to
Mhm.
properly do the business that a label would do. So the fact that we did get signed through a pandemic was unbelievable. Since like signing with them, they've really, being able to kind of utilize the Dynalone Records resources,
Mhm.
and they see our vision. They've never like asked anything of us creatively. They're just like, do Trench, be Trench, do what you would do. We have like a rapper on one of our songs, and they were just like super stoked on it. They were very encouraging, and they're like, yeah, let's get crazy. Like, just be Trench, man. We're just here to support you guys and and guide you. And they're an amazing label, and it's great too because they're Canadian. I've noticed that sometimes it can be a little tougher for an American label to sign a Canadian band. You're
Hmm.
immediately dealing with a band that you're going to have to like constantly get visas for to cross the border, dealing with a different currency, just all those little intricacies that come with signing a band from a different country.
Mhm.
And we had been talking to a couple different labels, and yeah, Dynalone really was just like the natural choice. It's been what a trip it is to be on a label with like Alexis on Fire and stuff like
Right.
that.
I know.
You
It's
know, to
incredible.
to call them our label mates is just, you know, unbelievable. I can't get over it. I don't think any of us can. So yeah, we feel very, very honored to be a part of the Dynalone New Damage team.
That's so cool. So cool. And thank you so much, Cole, for doing this, man. I really appreciate your time.
Dude, of course. Thank you for your time. It was great talking to you, man.
Yeah. I have one more quick question. I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Um, just do what feels right. I think that's my advice, you know. Uh, if you want to be like a guitar player that just sits at your house and learns blues, and that's where you want your musical journey to start and end, then do that. If you want to be the next like Bieber, then I think you should push for that and do that, because it is all possible, you know. And that sounds kind of cliche, but as a guy who's kind of on a small you know, seeing different things happen to my own band, I'm realizing, wow, like you really just have to commit, and you really just have to like chase after exactly what you want and make a plan for yourself, for your music, you know, whether that's learning an instrument or pressing your band onto a cassette tape or touring the world. Make a plan, make a goal, and follow through, you know, do everything you can to follow through, and that will put you in a great space, regardless of if you get massive or if you're just having a good time like noodling around on a guitar. Bringing it backward.